Hey everybody, Kat here. Welcome to the channel. Hope you're having a great day. Today, there's so much I want to talk about. Harry and Meghan. What's happening? Why? Why are we seeing what's happening? Where did it all come from? What's coming next? There's so much. I mean, Harry and Meghan are kind of an enigma. We've got Harry, who grew up, people like Ingrid Seward, editor of Majesty magazine, said he was always an angry young boy. He was always an angry kid. We've heard from him himself. He wanted to escape the royal family long before Meghan ever came along. You have a man stuck in a 12-year-old's mind, stunted emotionally, just stopped in his tracks with his mother's death. And I don't think he's ever recovered. And I mean, I don't think he ever got the proper treatment that he needed, or even the, consolation from his father. I mean, they're all emotional misfits. They are. You can see that in Charles, in his good grief, in his biography. He talks about his emotions through his letters and things like that, and you can see what kind of a guy he is. He's always been a weak guy. And that's why, things with Harry and Meghan have just gotten out of hand. That's one of the reasons, But Harry and Meghan, yeah, I mean, it's just one thing after another. We got news this week that the Sussexes have added a couple of new employees to their household. Ridiculous. Sarah Fosmo is chief of staff. What do they need a chief of staff of household? And Leanne Cashin as some kind of an advisor. They employ executives for their charities and foundations. Meghan's not a business. Over the years, they've lost probably over 30 staff, just a continuous exodus, revolving door of staff because they don't know how to treat anybody. We know about the bullying claims, the Sussex Survivor Club, all the stories. They play act at being business moguls, humanitarians, royals, right down to the stupid crest, on their correspondence from the office of. How pretentious. It means nothing. It means nothing. And in a time loop kind of way, if you're following that, they're reliving events a generation ago. From a generation ago, the Duke and Duchess of Windsor in exile carried on as if they were still royal. I'm going to read you a quick little excerpt here. Let me just find it. Here we go. It's about a page. And this is talking about Edward and Wallis once they were exiled in Paris. And Charles, as a young man, I think he was 23, through his Uncle Louis Mountbatten and I believe the British ambassador to France, managed to arrange a trip to France and a meeting with Edward, the Duke of Windsor. So the book goes on to say, Charles quotes, "I drove up with no small degree of anticipation as to what I would find in the Bois de Boulogne, and upon entering the house, I found footmen and pages wearing the identical scarlet and black uniforms to the ones we wear at home. It was rather pathetic seeing that. The eye then wandered to a table in the hall, which lay a red box with "The King" embossed on it. The whole house reeked of some particularly strong joss sticks. From out of the walls came the muffled sound of scratchy piped music. Sounds dreadful. The Duchess appeared from among a host of the most dreadful American guests I've ever seen. The look of incredulity on their faces was a study, and most of them were thoroughly tight. One man shook hands with me twice, muttered something incomprehensible in French with a strong American accent, and promptly collapsed into the arms of a strategically placed black footman. To my relief, I managed to escape into a small sitting room, where I was able to have a word with Uncle David by himself. He seemed in very good form, although rather bent and using a stick, a cane. One eye was closed most of the time as a result of his cataract operation, but apart from that, he was very talkative and used wide, expansive gestures the whole time while clutching an enormous cigar. We got onto the relationship with his father, and he said he had a very difficult time with him, and that Gan was a hard woman, and he'd been brought up extremely strict, hence his feeling against older people and tradition of all sorts. While we were talking, the Duchess kept flitting to and fro like a strange bat. She looks incredible for her age and obviously has had her face lifted every day. Consequently, she can't really speak except by clenching her teeth all the time and not moving any facial muscles. She struck me as a hard woman, totally unsympathetic and somewhat superficial. Who's that sound like, Megan? Very little warmth of the true kind. All that she talked about was whether she would wear a hat at the Arc de Triomphe the next day. Uncle David then talked about how difficult my family had made it for him the past 33 years. I asked him frankly if he would like to return to England for the last years of his life, and he hesitated to ask Wallace if he should give me, quote, the works. Now, there you go. That tells us a lot. That tells us, the way Edward and Wallace were play acting at being royals still, with liveried servants, red boxes, all the trappings of his former royal life. Kind of the same thing Harry and Meghan are doing. He's running around the world trying to be a, humanitarian. He's accepting awards and giving rambling, crazy speeches, acting like he's a man of some import. They're faux royal tours that are just embarrassing, and both Harry and Meghan using their royal titles for clout. They've been interfering in American politics. They've been pushing their agendas. Harry and Meghan have badmouthed the royals for years, and it was so toxic that they just had to leave. They had to mix it. They wanted their privacy. From the beginning, Meghan was scheming. But you have to understand. And here's the thing, and this is why The Time Loop and King Charles III, Life Imitating Art, those playlists are so important. Because I think I've woven together how this all came about. And for what reason, what we're seeing. You have to understand that there was a plan in place before she ever met Harry. Meghan cultivated a friendship when she came to England with British socialite Lizzie Cundy. And, she was on the hunt for a rich Brit. She briefly stalked a football player for a month or two till he told her to get lost. They went on a couple of weekends together and he was just like, whoa, I'm done. She was scoping out rich actors. She was hoping for a role on Made in Chelsea, which is a British reality show that surrounds the Chelsea very posh neighborhood in London with very posh young socialites and what they got up to. Now, she frequented Soho House in London. She already had an in, Marcus Anderson. Watch my video, Who is Marcus Anderson, in the Who's Your Daddy playlist. You'll learn a lot. You'll understand his role in all of this. Why is he always popping up with Harry and Meghan? Ever thought of that? I don't know if you've watched my other videos or not, but go back and check them out. Marcus Anderson has quite the history. Quite the history and quite the ties with the royal family. With Meghan. And some of her other associates. Marcus Anderson is her handler, people. Marcus Anderson is her handler. She already knew Eugenie by the time she met Harry. You may be surprised to know she knew Andrew way back in 2012. That's right, they share some of the same contacts. Before she was even set up with Harry, she'd had an encounter through Soho House with one of his friends who remarked about Meghan, she'll do anything. Remember in Harry and Meghan, the Netflix, the whole curtsy thing, when her and Harry were at Royal Lodge preparing to meet the Queen, and she said that she thought she thought he was the butler. She thought he was the help. Trying to make it look like she didn't know who he was. Trying to create distance between her and Andrew. Don't forget, she was already friends. She was already acquainted with Eugenie through Soho House. But she didn't know who Andrew was? She didn't know who Harry was? Come on. We've got lots of information now that we know that even as a very young girl, Meghan was obsessed with Diana. Meghan knew all the names. She knew all the... Come on, she didn't know who Andrew was. She didn't know who Harry was. She didn't Google him. She didn't know the anthem. She didn't know how to curtsy. Give me a break. Give me a break. Such bull. She had to hide the fact that she knew Andrew. And I think the fact that she knows about Andrew is something she used right from the start to hold over the head of the royals. I think for the royal family, the Andrew situation, which seems to be somewhat resolved now, however, I don't think that shadow will ever leave Andrew. But I think this is almost worse than calling them racist, because this one will never go away. Imagine if Harry ever finds out. He thinks his family is bad. And here we are after they get together 7 years later. We have Harry and Meghan. They're floundering in California now. Nothing's working. We've got a furious king who is frustrated and enraged by Harry and Meghan. Most recently, we've got a secret meeting leaked supposedly to start building bridges There are all kinds of speculation over who initiated the meeting and who leaked it. We know why William wasn't involved. He is done with them. He is done with them. You know, they've got real problems right now. Meghan, all of her commercial endeavors are going nowhere, despite her hype. You know, it's just pathetic. Everything's falling apart. Nobody's taking this meeting seriously. I truly believe, yeah, King Charles, considering his mortality, and I think more so considering his reign and what's going to be said about him when he's gone, he's got a personal wish to fix the problems. He's got a personal wish to, if not bring Harry and Meghan back into the royal fold, at least repair the damage done to their personal relationship so that Charles's heart may not be so heavy. I think a lot of this is, he's so self-absorbed. He's worried about his reputation, and he wants to be seen as a king and a father that worked to repair things with his son. But it's all theater. It's all theater. Because as soon as William is king, nothing Charles has said or done or set in place means anything. Harry and Meghan are heading for a fall because they know it. Even as much as the king may still be supporting them, the U.S. government, their organizations are supporting him. It's all going to change when William becomes king. Once William strips him of everything, everything goes away. There will be no more under-the-table politics Harry's been playing. The companies and the countries that engage Harry now will fall away when his status is stripped from him, when they know he's got no pulling power. They will not want to have anything to do with him. They will not want to cross King William. Harry will have no role in William's reign, not even a covert one that some are speculating with his shady dealings now could be perhaps in the monarchy's best interest, in England's best interest. Well, we do know the king is a founding member of the World Economic Forum. We know William is a member of the World Economic Forum. They are on the leading edge of all this climate nonsense, control grid system to force feudalism on the world by the elites. Meghan doesn't understand this. In a way, Harry doesn't understand it either. I mean, they're useful idiots. I've said that before. They're being used while at the same time they've been given, a platform. They've been given a role to play, even though it's rather meaningless. The things that Harry's been put up to for one thing, it's undermining the American government. It's undermining the British government and the monarchy because the damage he's doing. And I've said before, I think the huger, wider plan is something that we can almost not comprehend. It's a real conspiracy thing, which I kind of like anyway, and I hope you do too. If you're watching this, I think this goes back a long way. I've said before, I think Megan was handpicked as a child. Most kids that grow up in Hollywood, they're handpicked for something or other. Most award-winning Hollywood lighting director, you don't win an Emmy, let alone two, unless you're cooperating with the system. That's just the way it is. It's just the way it is. This goes back long ways. Royal Grift has done some great work looking at photographs and video and film of Megan going back through her childhood. We think it's bad with their so-called kids now, Lily and Archie, that every photograph is manipulated. Every photograph of Megan and her family going back to infancy, all of her photographs, her family, her story, it's all contrived. It's all fake. Megan's not who you think she is. Harry doesn't know. Harry doesn't know. She's been brought in to turn Harry, and in turn cause huge problems for the royal family. She's being used, and she's being teased with a carrot of, we'll give you this, we'll give you that. That is why stuff like her not a business and her not a podcast, and that's why she's allowed to keep doing that kind of stuff, because it keeps her distracted, keeps her thinking she's got some value. And Harry's head is so turned, he doesn't know what to do. Harry's head is so turned, he's a lost boy. He's a lost boy. Everything he's done and said against his family, and he still thinks they owe him an apology. He still thinks he deserves a place in the family. But think about this. This is crazy. Harry and Meghan, they had to leave. They had to exit. It was all so toxic. Yet, they got to hang on to the titles. They got to hang titles for the kids. They go on faux royal tours. They pretend they're royals every day. They want all the perks, none of the responsibility. Meghan would never accept standing a foot behind Catherine, let alone standing behind her own husband, who was the royal. If Meghan can't have the top billing, she doesn't want any of it. She resents all of them. I am sure that when she married Harry, she miscalculated. I'm pretty sure she thought, the castles and and he lived in Kensington. She probably thought he was a billionaire. She thought he had, who knows, a prince of the realm. It doesn't work that way in a monarchy. The heir gets everything. Everybody else is just, crumbs, baby. They might be quite posh crumbs, but you never get the status that the heir does. That's why Meghan tried her hardest as soon as she figured out what was actually happening. She wanted to go after, she flirting, making eyes at William, just being hideous. He spotted it right away. He had her number right away. They all did. They tried to warn Harry. And he probably went to Meghan and said, oh, you wouldn't believe she talked to, my grandfather. This is what he said about actresses. And Meghan says to him, oh, it's because I'm black. They're racist, Harry. They're never going to let me. They're never going to treat us right. She filled his head with all this shit, and this is a guy that was already damaged. This is a guy that was already angry. This is a guy that didn't want to be Prince Harry. I think I know why, too. So it was easy for her to pull him away and cause that kind of a problem. And I think this was set up. This was set up. Harry was never happy, But look at where he is now. Look at where he is now. He's lost Centibelly. African Parks is a mess. Halo is just a grift. And Invictus is on life support. Everything has failed. His court cases. He's really looking like a fool these days. There's still questions about his visa. American senators are still looking into things. Archwell Foundation's shady donations, for example, the money to Ashley Biden. This stinks of U.S. government collusion, payoffs, deals made on Harry and Meghan's benefit. And who, was the Palace involved? Some speculate that it's a real spy versus spy. We're using Harry and Meghan to get to you, while I'm propping up Harry to get to here. And when the truth about Meghan comes out, and it will, they're going to be so finished. They're going to be so finished. I really think that this has been a long-term plan to damage the royal family for sure. That's key. And I think because we know Meghan's whole family, that whole thing is contrived, right? You can't trust any of them. They're not who they say they are. Her father is now and brother, I think, stepbrother, Thomas's junior and senior, are now living in Malaysia somewhere, Indonesia. They've been taken out of the picture. There was no reason for him to leave Mexico for Indonesia. He didn't have to flee. He didn't have to flee. Their role in the operation is over. They've been paid off and tucked away. Just my opinion. I think some of these loose ends are starting to be tied up. And, the biggest loose end in this operation are Harry and Meghan themselves. Well, I've called them useful idiots, and useful idiots are only around for as long as they are useful. When they start becoming a liability, that's when they're taken care of. I think things are going to get real interesting real soon. So let's keep watching. Hope you enjoyed this. Like, subscribe, leave me comments. I want to know what you're thinking. And we'll see you in the next one. Bye, everybody.